to be more than 10 because he's giving us the explanation of turuq. So we have Al-Qadi al-Baqillani says لا يكفي الأربعة, 4 is not enough. وما فوقها صالح, and what is above 4 is fine. وتوقف في الخمسة, and he did توقف on the 5. Al-Istakhri said أقله 10, the minimum is 10. Imam Suyuti says وهو المختار, that is the preferred position. لأنه أول جموع الكثرة, because this is the first or the lowest number of the Jam'a Kathra. وقيل 12, and it said that it's 12 because عدد النقطاء بني إسرائيل 20 40 70 300. Yeah, so all of these numbers are put. So I think the minimum, although the minimum, other people have put a minimum of 3, well, minimum of 4, not 3, because mashhur comes on 3. Minimum of 4, or 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. For Ibn Hajar and also for Imam Suyuti, the minimum has to be 10 because of the way that they explain that mutawatir is turuq kathira, and that turuq is jam'a takthir. Yeah. Reality evolved. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So yeah, let's start. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. The reality of all of this is that the mutawatir, in those conditions, yeah, the conditions that Hafiz ibn Hajar mentions, is very rare to find. The conditions that Hafiz ibn Hajar mentions is very rare to find. There's only one hadith, and Hafiz ibn Hajar will talk about this afterwards. There is only one hadith that fits that criteria, and that is the hadith Man kadhaba alayya muta'ammidan falyatabawwa maq'adahu min an-nar. The Prophet ﷺ says that whoever tells a lie on me, Man kadhaba alayya muta'ammidan, whoever tells a lie on me, then they should make an abode for themselves in hell. For the muhaddithun, when they use the word mutawatir, they won't usually use the word mutawatir. They'll use the fi'l tawatara, قد تواترت عنه, and by that they don't mean the technical mutawatir. They mean that there's a lot of turuq, there's a lot of isnads to it, because the mutawatir definition that is being given here is a definition which is not a usulul hadith or ulumul hadith definition. That is a usulul fiqhi definition, and the ulama really do not, or the ulama of hadith really do not deal with that, or deal with hadith in that particular way. The first one to have defined it in this particular way is Khatib Baghdadi. Before that, you will not find anybody defining mutawatir. They talk about kathratu turuq, right? They talk about qad tawatara anhu al-hadith, but when they mean, what they mean by that is that there is a lot of isnad to that particular hadith, and not those conditions. It was Khatib al-Baghdadi. Remember I said Khatib al-Baghdadi, he got the ma'qulat and the manqulat and all the aqli and logic and mantiq, and he incorporated all of that in his kifaya. Okay, so this mutawatir is the way that it's been discussed here, it's very, very rare to find. Okay, the only things that we can say are mutawatir, not hadith, but generally, is that the Quran is the book of Allah. Yeah, Islam is the religion that came to the Prophet Muhammad. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a historical figure. Yeah, namaz is a part of Islam, zakat is a part of Islam, hajj is a part of Islam. Those kind of what we call dururiyat beliefs have come down to us tawaturan. Okay, so for example, the munkirin hadith, those people who deny the hadith, right, they say that there are not 5 prayers mentioned in the Quran. There are only 3 prayers mentioned in the Quran. Okay, in the Quran there are 3 times mentioned, not 3 prayers, 3 times where you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, and 2 of the prayers are incorporated in those times. Now we say that one of the reason why we pray 5 prayers a day is because this amal has passed on to us through mutawatir. By mutawatir, we mean that so many people have practiced it in that way of 5 prayer, not whether you should do raf'a yadayn or not whether you should, all the ikhtilafat that you have, but the concept of 5 prayer a day has reached us in such a large manner that it's impossible that everybody is lying. Yeah. So this is what it means by mutawatir. Let's carry on and we'll read this inshallah, and then we can have a discussion on this. Zain, somebody want to read?
Yeah, inshallah.
We read from فَإِذَا وَرَدَ الْخَبْرُ.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فإذا ورد الخبر كذلك وانضاف إليه أن يستوي الأمر فيه في كثرة المذكورة من ابتدائه إلى انتهائه، والمراد بالاستواء أن لا تنقص الكثرة المذكورة في بعض المواضع لا أن لا تزيد، إذ الزيادة مطلوبة هنا من باب أولى.
Okay, so just go back a bit. So he says, وَإِذَا وَرَدَ الْخَبْرُ كَذَلِكَ, when a hadith comes with كَذَلِكَ, with the above description that he mentioned, كثرة الطرق بلا حصر عدد معين تكون العادة قد أحال طواطهم على الكل وكذا وقوعه منهم اتفاقا من غير قصد. He says إذا ورد كذلك, when those conditions are met, and then he says وأنضاف إليه, and I also add to that أن يستوي الأمر فيه في الكثرة المذكورة من ابتدائه إلى انتهائه, that the number of people who are narrating it in that kathra, right, in that large amount, they should remain constant, right, from the beginning to the end. وَالْمُرَادُ بِالْإِسْتِوَاء, and he says, what does it mean by remaining constant or remaining same? أَلَّا تَنْقُصَ الْكَثْرَةِ, that this abundance of rawis should not, لا تنقص الكثرة المذكورة في بعض المواضع, should not fall below that number, below the minimum number, right, في بعض المواضع, in certain places of the isnad. Now, without knowing, Zain, somebody just say, what is the minimum number? Without knowing the minimum number, how do we know if it has fallen, short? How do we know if he has fallen short of that kathra if we don't have a lowest common denominator? The way you do that is when you lose confidence, okay, or when it becomes possible that it might be that people are lying. So you can see that in this sense, it's very qualitative. It's not an exact science in this way. Like if you had a number, then that would have been kind of more exact scientifically. Then you could say, okay, they've fallen below this number, and therefore we have moved out of tawatur. But here it's not saying it's exact. It's leaving it to people and their feelings and what kind of epistemologically, what kind of confidence they are receiving for that. Does everyone understand what epistemology means? Because I'm going to be using this word a bit. Epistemology. Can somebody explain? Who do I have on my screen? Najma, sister, do you want to explain what epistemology is? Zain Sab Absam Jalo.
I'm not really sure. Is it some sort of like thought process?
Yeah, okay, so let me explain that. Remember this word because you will come across it many times. Ilmul Kalam, yeah, when we do Ilmul Kalam, the beginning of Ilmul Kalam, right? If you, I don't know if you've done higher text, but if you do like Sharh Aqaid al-Nasafiyya and things like that, the very first thing that they talk is about epistemology. Epistemology is known as the theory of knowledge. What is it? The theory of knowledge. What that means is that epistemology is the science that deals with what we know, how do we know it? The knowledge that we already have, okay, how did we arrive at knowing what we know? The processes involved in arriving at the knowledge that we already know, that is called epistemology. So for example, how did I find out that the pot is hot? Is that knowledge came to me not by looking, but by me making the mistake of putting my hand onto it. Okay, so the knowledge of the pot being hot came to me through my senses. Yeah, so with a sense of touching. So that is epistemology, in that sense that the heat or the hot pan, that knowledge I received through my senses. Okay, how do we know that a hadith is sahih, or what confidence do we have in a hadith? Okay, that is known as epistemology. What kind of confidence do we have in a hadith mutawatir? What confidence do we have in hadith mashhur? What confidence do we have in hadith aziz and hadith gharib? The knowledge and the confidence that we receive, that process is called epistemology. Yeah. Haqa'iqul ashya'i, Imam al-Nasafi says, Haqa'iqul ashya'i sabidatun. Right? The haqiqat of everything is established. How do we establish the haqiqat? In what tariqa, in what way? Right? That is called epistemology. So epistemology basically is, technical definition is a theory of knowledge. But if you want to explain what that means, is how do we know how did we know what we already know? That is called epistemology. Yeah. All of this discussion now that Imam Ibn Hajar is going to have is a discussion that is not found in the books of Ulum al-Hadith. It is found in the books of Usul al-Fiqh. And this relates to epistemology. What kind of knowledge and what kind of confidence are we having, do we have in those hadith? Does that make sense? Yeah. I think Sister Najma got scared. He left because I asked her what epistemology is. Okay, no. That's, I'm only joking. Right. You'll notice if you study with me for quite a bit that I have a very dry sense of humor. Okay. So ألا تنقص الكثرة المذكورة في بعض المواضع لا ألا تزيد. It's not that you can't have more than the number that we started with, but you can't fall below the number to the extent that you lose confidence in that report. Okay. إذ الزيادة مطلوبة هنا من باب الأولى, because to have more narrations or not more turuq isnad is a priori, it's sought out, it's matlub, it's better. Okay, the more the merrier. Carry on, Zainsa.
وأن يكون مستند انتهائه الأمر المشاهد أو المسموع لا ما ثبت بقضية العقل الصرف كالواحد نصف الاثنين.
Yeah, so Imam Ibn Hajar is adding another kind of a qualification to the definition of mutawatir, and he says كثرة الطرق عدم توافقهم على الكذب وعدم توافقهم تواطؤهم على الكذب, and all of that, and then استواء الإسناد من الابتداء وإلى الانتهاء. In addition to all of that, أن يكون مستند انتهائه الأمر المشاهد أو المسموع, that the end of the isnad, the one who's receiving that isnad, okay, the end one who's documenting it, let's say Imam al-Bukhari is documenting it, he has to declare that he has received that through his senses, al-mushahad أو المسموع, okay, not لا ما ثبت بقضية العقل الصرف صرف or صرف, and not something which he thought of, that it came to him intellectually. What that basically means is when the report is reported to the last person, he has to say سمعت or رأيت, yeah, or لمست. There has to be some sensory perception involved so that the kind of tawassul or tawasul and the consecutive transmission is there, and not that Imam Bukhari says, oh, I thought of this, I have this theory, okay, and I'm sure that many people, many people share this theory with me. No, it says it can't be something which you deduce on the base of intellectual mentation. It has to be something which was physically received. In the case of hadith, it might be mushahada or sima'a, but it's not necessary. So that's the condition. So you can basically see that it is quite difficult to fulfill all of those conditions in a hadith, other than what we have mentioned, that the Quran is the book of Allah, the 5 prayer, ijma' of ummah, the sunnah, and those kind of mabadi'at, the usuli principles of Islam. Carry on.
Oh, sorry, what does this mustanidu mean?
Mustanad basically means relied upon. Mustanadu intihaihi, where the end of the sanad, if you want to translate it. وَأَيَّكُونَ مُسْتَنِدُ إِنْتِهَائِهِ, right? The one who is receiving it at the end, that they have to receive it al-amr al-mushahad aw al-masmu', so through some sensory perception. Yeah. فَإِذَا جَمَعَ هذه الشروط الأربعة, and when these 4 qualifications are met, or these 4, عدد كثير أحالت تواطؤهم أو توافقهم على الكذب رووا ذلك عن مثلهم من الابتداء إلى الانتهاء وكان مستند انتهائهم الحس. Yeah. So here, I've checked the different shuruhat. I've checked the commentary by Mullah Ali Qari. I've checked the commentary by Sheikh Hatim Al-Auni and others. And according to their understanding, right, their understanding is that up till 1 to 3 that he's mentioned here, 4 comes here, right? There's 4 there, not 3 there. And the 4th one, number 4 that he's got there, that is something new that Imam Ibn Hajar has added that no one else has added before. And there is a i'tiraz on that. There is a question on that which will Imam Ibn Hajar will mention. So number 1 is adadun kathir, yeah, many turuq, many isnads. Number 2 is أحالة العادة تواطؤهم أو تفاوقهم على الكذب, that either it's impossible for them to be conspiring on a lie or to be coincidentally not lying. That's number 2. رووا ذلك عن مثلهم من الابتداء إلى الانتهاء. This amount has to remain constant from the beginning to the end. That's number 3. وكان مستند انتهائهم الحس, the final receiver of this isnad has to receive it through through his senses. Okay, so that's now 4. وَانْضَافُوا إِلَى ذَلِكَ, and then Imam Ibn Hajar says, and I add a 5th one, right, which is أَن يَصْحَبَ خَبَرَهُمْ إِفَادَةُ الْعِلْمِ لِسَامِعِهِ. That وَانْضَافُوا إِلَى ذَلِكَ, I add that the information that is received from this type of report has to give ilm, has to give confident knowledge or yaqini knowledge to the listener. فهذا هو التواتر. So this is the 5th condition Mullah Ali Qari says that has been given. So عدد كثير is 1. أحال التواتم عادة تواتفهم أو توافقهم is 2. رووا ذلك عن مثل من الابتداء إلى الانتهاء is 3. وكان مستند انتهائهم الحس is 4. And then on top of that 4, Imam Ibn Hajar says, وَأَنْضَافُوا إِلَى ذَلِكَ أَن يَصْحَبَ خَبَرَهُمْ إِفَادَةُ الْعِلْمِ لِسَامِعِهِ. And I add to that that report has to transmit or has to give the person who is receiving that news confident knowledge. Okay, what that basically means is that if 100 people, let's say, where it's impossible for those 100 people to come and, those 100 people, they meet the previous shurut, right? The previous 4 shurut. And they basically said the sun has risen from the west. And now the sami', the person who's listening to these bayanats, right, from people, he knows for sure that the sun has risen from the east because he witnessed it. So it doesn't matter if 100 people tell him that independently, and it doesn't matter if it's possible, it doesn't matter if it's not possible for them to be lying, but the fact that the sami', the listener knows something with full confidence that is contrary to the report of those 100 people, that will not give him a confidence in his heart, and therefore that will not, for him, will not meet the requirements of tawatur. So this is a 5th condition that Imam Ibn Hajar asked. In that he puts down, this 5th condition is more to do with the perception of the receiver and not about how the report has been transmitted, right? Because everybody says that if the report is transmitted and it meets those 4 conditions, then it is mutawatir. Imam Ibn Hajar, he puts what we call kabab mehdi, right? Puts a 5th condition. He says that's all fine, but the receiver has to also have confidence in that report, right? Maybe the receiver knows something which is inhibiting him from having confidence in those reports, even though they meet all the other conditions. So for that person, that report is not mutawatir. So can you see? So there is an element of subjectivity inside there. وَمَا تَخَلَّفَتْ إِفَادَةُ الْجِيد زين سب.
وما تخلفت إفادة العلم عنه كان مشهورا فقط فكل متواتر مشهور من غير عكس.
Yeah. So whatever falls below, وما تخلفت إفادة العلم, whatever falls below imparting confident knowledge. Do you know what it means by confident knowledge? Knowledge where you have got confidence, you have got yaqeen that this is true. Yeah. At this moment, I think I should introduce a few, Imam Ibn Hajar is going to introduce it as well, but at this moment, I think I should introduce a few terminologies. These terminologies are related to epistemology. If you get your head around those terminologies, then you will be able to understand the discussion. So I need you to write with your pen and paper. There's a number of words that yes. So Sister Shazia saying, doesn't the fifth condition mean that hadith acceptance becomes subjective and lead to arguments and divisions between people? All hadith acceptance are subjective, and that's why there are arguments and divisions between people, and that's why there are differences of opinion on the madhab. These concepts are all abstract. Okay, nobody disputes these concepts. Nobody disputes them, or people do dispute them sometimes, but theoretically they accept what is sahih, what is da'if, what is hasan. They accept all of that. However, does that theory apply to individual hadith? That is where the difference is. Okay, and that's where the ulama will say, no, here the shart of tawatur is not being fulfilled, or here the shart of sihha is not being fulfilled. Somebody else will say, no, it is being fulfilled. This is why I say, right at the beginning, I made a disclaimer, and that disclaimer is that what we are doing here is that we are only learning broad concepts. With those broad concepts, we are not allowed to judge hadiths, because this is very abstract. If you really want to know how to judge hadith, then you will have to know of every single scholar or whoever you want to study, what their opinion is on that particular terminology, and then you will know what their opinion is on the hadith. Normally, when we talk about jarh and ta'dil and analysis of hadith, there are seven or eight people who are seen as stalwart scholars, and their kind of opinions are seen as the most pivotal. And if they come on an ijma, then everybody will accept them. From the top of my head, some of them are Yahya ibn Ma'in, Ali ibn al-Madini, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Imam al-Bukhari, Imam ibn Abi Hatim al-Razi, Imam Abu Zur'a al-Razi, and then Imam Daraqutni. These are the kind of 7 or 8 people, and then sometimes Imam Nasai is also brought into that as an 8th or 9th person. These are the people from the earlier scholars that you need to be focusing on, and they are the imams of jarh and ta'dil. If they say something, or majority of them unanimously, then you can have a confidence. This is why modern scholars like Sheikh Nasiruddin al-Albani and others are able to come up with their own versions of hadith classifications, because they're not accepting what the previous scholars are saying. So doesn't the fifth condition mean that hadith acceptance becomes subjective and can lead to arguments and divisions between people? Yes, it does, and in reality, this is what normally happens. You will find that the more where we kind of pride ourselves, and not to take anything away from you, but to give you an understanding, where people pride themselves and say that hadith is a ulum al-hadith is a mathematical subject, right? It is a subject which, when you follow it A to Z, there is a flowchart logic to it. If it's this, then the answer is this. If it's not this, then the answer is this or this. If it's not this, the answer is this or this. This is all theoretically, but when you actually go to do ilm al-jarh and ta'dil and dirasat al-isnad, when you actually go to analyze the isnad, then you see that everything within that is subjective. For example, one of the conditions of sahih is that the rawi has to be adil. The rawi has to be upright. Nobody disagrees with that. However, what constitutes an upright rawi, there is heavy contestation there. Okay, somebody will say that if a person doesn't wear a hat, he's not adil, and therefore you can't take hadith from him. If a person was seen as eating on the road, then you will that person is not adil, and that's why you have mizaj of scholars. Okay, you have the mizaj of scholars. For example, Imam Ibn al-Jawzi has a book on fabricated hadith called Al-Mawdu'at. Yeah, Al-Mawdu'at, fabricated hadith. People basically said that he's done tashaddud. Even Sahih hadiths, he's made them weak. But then you'll find in the Mustadrak, Hakim also makes weak hadiths Sahih because he was very lenient. So then you have to then go and study the mizaj of the ulama. There might be some who are mutashaddid, okay? Ibn Hajar, Ibn Taymiyyah was mutashaddid, right? Abdul Hadi was mutashaddid, but there are others who are mutasahil. So mutasahil are very lenient, okay? And for them, they're also making da'if hadiths sahih. So then it becomes a subject where you will have to study the manhaj and the opinion and the methodology of each individual scholar. So that's why this is a very difficult subject. And that's why I say that by reading Nuzha and these basic books of hadith, you cannot be a scholar of hadith. What you are being introduced to is abstract terminologies, okay? Abstract terminologies, that's all. I hope that answers your question. Right. We have a number. Is there a lot of disagreement on number of mutawatir hadith? Do we have numbers where all scholars, schools agree for hadith to be mutawatir? We have a number where everyone agrees on, and that is the hadith of man kadhaba alayya muta'ammidan falyatabawwa maq'adahu min an-nar. That's the only hadith that everybody agrees on. Beyond that, there is heavy ikhtilaf, which Imam Ibn Hajar is going to pick up, and then I'll talk about it there, inshallah. Let's carry on. So further questions, we'll keep it for the discussions at the end, or you can ask them on the WhatsApp group. وما تخلفت إفادة العلم عنه كانت مشهورا. So if something falls short of giving, imparting, convincing information, okay, then that is عنه كان مشهورا فقط, then that is مشهور. فكل متواتر مشهور من غير عكس. Every mutawatir is مشهور, but not every مشهور is stop the middle. Not every مشهور is mutawatir. So here it seems like that there is a what we call umum khusus mutlaq, general specific absolute relationship between them. So Imam Ibn Hajar is saying that mutawatir is not a qasim. So there's two words in Arabic. One is qasim, qaf sin ya mim, and the other one is qism. Okay, mutawatir is not a qasim of mashhur. Qasim basically means everything is on the same level, co-workers, if you want to call it. So mutawatir is not a qasim, is not on the same level, right? They're not categories which are on the same level, like the way that you have sahih, hasan, da'if. These are all categories of different types of hadith. So we can say these are qasim of the qism of hadith. The qism is on the top, right? Imam Ibn Hajar is saying that mutawatir is not a qasim of mashhur, but so it's not on the same level, but it's a type of mashhur. Yeah, so mashhur is on the top of the hierarchy. Mutawatir is a type of mashhur. Then you get mustafis, and then you get ahad coming out of that. That is a ulum al-hadith discussion according to the ulama of usul al-fiqh, which Imam Ibn Hajar is going to talk right now. Mutawatir is a qasim, right? You don't need to get bogged down with all of these classifications and hierarchy. Just kind of understand the definition. Okay, there are a few terminologies which comes from from ilm al-mantiq that Imam Ibn Hajar is going to use. Number one, ilm. Yeah. Number two, if you write these down. Number two, قطعي قاف طا عين يا قطعي. Number 3, yaqeen. Yeah. No, sorry, don't write number 3 yaqeen. Write number 3 as ضروري or ضرورة from with ضاد. ضروري or ضرورة. Number 4, نظري نون ضا طا ضا را يا. نظري. So we've got علم, we've got قطعي, we've got ضروري, and then we've got نظري. Okay. Now on another line, write number 1, yaqeen. Number 2, ظن طا ضا نون ظن. Number 3, shak. Number 4, waham, wow, small ha, mim, waham. And number 5, khata. Yeah, yaqeen, ظن, shak, waham, khata. Let's start with the last category. Yaqeen is something where you have full confident knowledge of that, known as ilmul yaqeen. Full confident knowledge. Okay, so let's leave it at that, and we'll come back to how that relates to ilm and daruri and nadari and things like that. So yaqeen, and these are fiqhi terminologies as well, and they're used in fiqh. So you will, if you remember those, it will help you in fiqh, usul al-fiqh, and a lot of things. One is also used in fiqh, sometimes known as ghalabatul dhann. Yeah, dominant conjecture or a dominant opinion. Dhann is when you do not have yaqeen, you don't have full conviction, but it's a preponderant leaning towards yaqeen. Okay, so there is a kind of a small slight doubt that this thing cannot be true or may not be true. You have a slight doubt this thing may not be true. However, you are more convinced that it is true. So it's rajih. It's not yaqeen because you've got that shadow of doubt there, but because it's tipping towards yaqeen, we call that dhann, or we call that ghalabatul dhann. Yeah. Shak. Shak is when it's in the middle, right? You don't know either way. You don't know if it might be wrong or it might be right. You're in the middle. That is called shak. Then you have waham. Waham is the opposite of dhann. Okay, there is a doubt between whether it's true or not, but the scales are tilted towards not true. That's called waham. Yeah, and khata is blatantly wrong. So yaqeen, dhann, shak, waham, and khata. Now, how do we get this? Let's talk about just yaqeen and dhann. How do we get yaqeeni knowledge, or how do we get dhanni knowledge? Okay, as far as now, yaqeeni knowledge sometimes is also known as qat'i knowledge. Yeah, it's also known as qat'i. Qat'i knowledge means firm knowledge. How do we come to a position where we can say that this information that we have received, I am 100% convinced that it is the truth? There are two ways that you can get yaqeeni knowledge, right? Number one is daruri, and number two is nadari. Daruri and nadari, these are mantiqi terminologies. These are used to explain that the knowledge that I have received, how have I received it? Daruri, from the word necessity, right? And you might have come across this word, ma'aloom min ad-dini bid-darura, what is necessarily known from the religion, right? Daruri knowledge is necessary knowledge, okay? Or we can basically say that it is non-contingent knowledge, yeah, is pure knowledge. Knowledge that comes to you straight away, yeah, without you having to think. Knowledge that comes to you straight away without you having to think. So for example, half is smaller than full. That's dururi. Okay. You can't have what we call maniyatul khulu. You can't have two opposites together. So for example, you can't jump into the water in your natural sense naked and not get wet, unless you have some kind of, you know, waterproof cream on. But in your natural self, you can't jump into the water and not get wet, right? These are obvious things, right? So one type of knowledge is that these knowledge are so universal truths that they become obvious, durura, and you don't need to think too much about them, right? Nadari knowledge is where you have to do nadar, you have to ponder over it, okay, and then you come to a natija. Nadari knowledge is, for example, 1 + 1 = 2, 2 + 2 = 4. There is an equation involved. Before you go to the conclusion, which is 4, you have to understand what number 2 is, and then adding another number 2 equals to number 4. That is called nadari. It needs a bit of thinking. Yeah. Both ilm al-dururi and ilm al-nadari give faida, or can give faida, to yaqini knowledge. Okay, depending on your source of knowledge. Now, if the source of knowledge is qat'i, okay, that will give you a daruri nadari knowledge, which then gives you ilm al-yaqeen. Okay, ilm dhanni comes mainly from nadari knowledge. Okay, now the majority of the fiqh that we have is based on dhanni. Is dhan, is ghalabat dhan. Majority. We don't. It's not 100% that everything is true. Majority, dominant knowledge. Majority of the fiqh is based on dominant knowledge, and this is why people like Imam Abu Hanifa and others say that you can't use khabri wahid in you know, aqidah issues, because khabri wahid gives zanni knowledge, whereas you need you know, qat'i knowledge. You need, you know, ilm al-yaqeen for aqidah issues. Does that make sense? Or have you have I confused all of you? Anyone, please respond. Okay, sure.
I think they're good. They've done these things before as well. But
okay.
So, but this is a good recap as well.
Okay, sorry, I'm not patronizing anyone then. I thought you haven't done it, but let's move on.
It's good. Recap is good.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, without going into epistemology too much, because this subject is very mind-boggling as well. So let's not go into more details, because this is a topic of usulul fiqh and not really usulul hadith. Right. Next page, please, Bilal Sab. Yes. G Sab, Zain Sab. Anybody else wants to read? Anyone else? Shazia? Chalo Zain Sab. Abhi pad lo.
وقد يقال إن الشروط الأربعة إذا حصلت استلزمت حصول العلم، وهو كذلك في الغالب، لكن قد يتخلف عن البعض لمانع.
Okay, so this is a question, what we call an i'tirad, a question that is posed to Imam Ibn Hajar, who put that last condition on the fifth condition, where he says وَأَنْضَافُ إِلَى ذَلِكَ أَنْ يَصْحَبَ خَبَرَهُمْ إِفَادَةَ الْعِلْمِ لِسَامِعٍ, that I also add that the information that is being received has to give firm knowledge, knowledge to the listener. It says وَقَدْ يُقَالُ, and somebody can ask you a question, right? That إِنَّ الشُّرُوطُ الْأَرْبَعَ إِذَا حَصُلَتْ, that the four conditions that has been mentioned above, when these conditions are met, حصلت استلزمت حصول العلم, right? That that requires that one has got or has got yaqini knowledge. You know, the 4 conditions. When those conditions are met, then automatically one will get knowledge which is yaqini. Imam Ibn Hajar responds to this, and he says, وَهُوَ كَذَلِكَ فِي الْغَالِبِ. That is the case in most of the time. وَهُوَ كَذَلِكَ فِي الْغَالِبِ. That is the case most of the time. لكن قد يتخلف عن البعض لمانع. However, sometimes يتخلف العلم, this firm yaqini knowledge may not be received by some because of certain inhibitors or certain things which is inhibiting that. For example, Mullah Ali Qari mentions, for example, كغباوة السامع, that the Sami' might really not have the capacity to comprehend. So for example, let's say for example, if a person is, you know, let's say a child, right, or a person who doesn't have you know, proper mental capacity, if they were to listen to this and this khabar which has reached through those 4 shuruts, yeah, for them it's not gonna be ilm yaqini for them, because they don't have the intellectual capacity to be able to assess that. Yeah. So he says, however, when this happens normally, لكن قد يتخلف عن المانع. Imam Suyuti then goes and then says that it may be that the it may be that it has been received like that, but the muhaddith who has received that hadith may not know that some of the conditions have been fulfilled, and therefore for him it's not giving ilm al-yaqin. Okay, so there are exceptions to that. Okay, وقد وضح بهذا تعريف المتواتر or وقد وضح بهذا تعريف المتواتر, that from the above we have the definition of mutawatir has become apparent, has become clear. وخلافه قد يرد. Okay, and how would you translate وخلافه? I'm trying to think of a succinct translation. And opposing these conditions, we may have he's translating here al-qat'i al-yaqini al-dururi, that we may have al-maqsood bi khilafu ay khilaf al-mutawatir ay ma huwa siwahu la aksuhu wa huwa al-ahad. So he says that wa khilafuhu, other than the we may have reports which are other than, so khilafu here, other than the mutawatir. Khilaful mutawatir qad yarid. We may have reports which is other which are other than the mutawatir. How? Number 1, bila hasrin aidan lakin ma'a faqti ba'd ash-shurut. We may have reports which are other than the mutawatir, which are not mutawatir. However, they may not have a fixed number like the mutawatir. However, they may fall short on some of the conditions. So there may be kathrat al-turuq, but it may be that it's not, that tariqa might not be, or the turuq the numbers might not be constant from the beginning to the end. Okay, so it has fallen short of the or that its end is not mustanid ila al-masami' aw al-mashahid. So that's one. Okay, falling below the conditions of the mutawatir. See, Zain Sab, here بلا حصر, and then he says لكن مع فقد بعض الشروط. What are these بعض الشروط? عدم تواترهم على الكذب أو توافقهم على الكذب, yeah, all of that stuff. أو مع حصر, or there might be a specific number, بما فوق الاثنين أو بثلاثة فصاعدا, okay, more than 3. So Imam Ibn Hajar is saying 3 or more than 3, right? ما لم تجتمع شروط التواتر, as long as it does not meet the conditions of tawatur. So you might have, right, more than 3, okay, فوق الاثنين, ثلاثة or more than that, but it doesn't reach the condition of tawatur, which is, if we were to give a minimum number, the minimum number based on the word turuq is 10. Yeah. أو بهما, or what is not mutawatir, خلافه, yeah. So it says خلافه, opposite, other than the mutawatir, you can only, or you can have بهما أي بإثنين فقط. You can have a report which is not a which is opposite a mutawatir, where there are only 2 narrators, أو بواحد, or you can only have 1 narrator. Okay. Now, I will like to mention to you that according to the ulama of usulul fiqh, according to the ulama of, and it's very important that you understand these distinctions, because when you read these things in the books, then you have to ask yourself, which terminology is the scholar using in order to be able to understand the mas'ala. The ulama might not be, the alim might not be telling you from which discipline he's using this terminology from. Unfortunately or fortunately, these previous ulama, right, they were not only expert on one subject, they were polymaths. They were experts in all of these subjects. And as a result of that, they're using terminology, there's osmosis going on. They're using terminologies from one subject discipline into another discipline. So it's very important that you also understand the disciplinary distinction. Okay, so according to the ulama of usulul fiqh, there are 3 types of hadith which are based mainly on quantity rather than quality. It's a quantitative approach rather than a qualitative approach. They are hadith mutawatir, hadith mashhur, and hadith khabr wahid. And here, it's just Shazia, someone else asked me last week, this is the lone report, hadith khabr wahid. Even then, the khabr wahid is not the lone report. Khabr wahid is as long as it doesn't reach the level of mashhur. So there's 3: khabr mutawatir, khabar mutawatir, khabar mashhur, and khabar wahid. According to the ulama of hadith, yeah, there are according to the ulama of hadith, there are, if you want to call, there are 2 types. Okay, number 1 is khabar mutawatir, and number 2 is khabar ahad. Only 2 types of hadith. Yeah, khabar mutawatir and khabar ahad. Now there are 3 types of khabar ahad. You can call them mashhur or mustafid, or you can call them aziz, and you can call them gharib. So when the ulama, they say khabar ahad or khabar wahid, you have to be very careful to understand, are they using an usul al-fiqh definition or are they using a hadith definition? Because if they're using a hadith definition, they might use the category khabar ahad, and mainly they'll use the word khabar ahad rather than khabar wahid. That is an indication. So then when they say khabar ahad, they might be meaning aziz, they might be meaning gharib, or they might be meaning mashhur. Okay, so you have to be careful. Okay, let's take a 10 minutes break, inshallah. We will be back. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Everyone here?
Wa alaikum assalam, Sheikh.
Shall we start?
Inshallah.
Okay. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Yes, so we were, just before the break, we were discussing the different terminologies by the ulama of hadith and by the ulama of usul al-fiqh. It's very important to know the difference in those terminologies because they use them in the books. And if you don't know from which discipline that they're coming from, then you may come up with wrong conclusions. So like I said, that this is not an easy field. And the reason why it's not easy field is because it's complicated with, there's disciplinary confusion that's happening here, okay? Imam Ibn Hajar then says, وَالْمُرَادُ بِقَوْلِنَا أَن يَرِدَ بِإِثْنَيْنِ. So when he said, he goes, what we mean by the sentence, أَن يَرِدَ بِإِثْنَيْنِ, that the hadith comes with only two people, what does that mean? أَلَّا يَرِدَ بِأَقَلِّ مِنْهُمَا, that you don't get a number which is below the two. فإن ورد بأكثر في بعض المواضع من السند الواحد لا يضر. However, if you get more than two people in some parts of the same isnad, then that's not a problem. إذ الأقل في هذا يقتضي على الأكثر, because it's the lowest number that will arbitrate on the higher number. Basically what he's saying is, when we say that a hadith mashhur is, let's say just for example, 3 people narrating, and another hadith aziz is only 2 people narrating, and another hadith gharib is only 1 people narrating. By that we don't mean that there has to be that number throughout the isnad. You can have, so if we take the hadith aziz, which is 2 people are narrating, you can have more than 2 people narrating in any one part of the isnad, right? As long as it doesn't reach the level of mashhur or whatever. But in order to decide whether a hadith is mashhur or whether a hadith is aziz, so mashhur is the one that falls below the mutawatir, but more than 3 people, 3 or more than 3 people have narrated it. Aziz is the one where only 2 people have narrated, and Wahid is the one where only there is a lone narrator, one narrator. In order to determine whether an isnad, whether a hadith is mashhur, or whether it's aziz, or whether it's gharib, we look at the lowest number of people in the isnad and not the higher number. That's what we're saying. It's the lowest number that's going to determine the nature of that hadith rather than the higher number. Yeah. وَالْمُرَادُ بِقَوْلِنَا, in the same way that when it comes to determining whether a person in the whether a hadith is weak or not, you look at the weakest narrator. There might be 10 people in the isnad, right? And 9 of them might be very strong, but still that hadith might be declared to be weak because of the weakest link. So in order to do a hukum on a hadith, you need to look at the weakest narrator and not the strongest narrator. So similarly, in order to determine what type of isnad this is, right? Is it mutawatir? No, we're not even talking about mutawatir here. Is it mashhur? Is it aziz? Is it gharib? We look at the least number of people in the isnad, not not how many people above that. Idil aqal is because the least number dictates and arbitrates over the higher number. Yes, sir. Al-awwal fal-awwalu al-mutawatir. Just stop there. So when he said above, وقد وضح بهذا تعريف المتواتر وخلافه قد يرد. So he's already mentioned that the first one is the mutawatir. Okay, carry on. Now he's going to give the hukum of the mutawatir. Now this is the technical bit where it gets confusing. Okay, after giving the hukum of, by hukum we mean what do we get out of a mutawatir? After having that discussion, then he's going to say, and the second one is called mashhur, and the third one is, and then he's going to discuss a bit about that, and then the third one is aziz. He's going to discuss its hukum, and the third one is, and the fourth one is khabar wahid. Okay, so what's the hukum of the mutawatir? What we mean by hukum is what kind of knowledge do we get out of a khabar mutawatir? وهو جيسب زين سب.
وهو المفيد للعلم اليقيني، فأخرج النظرية على ما يأتي تقريره بشروطه التي تقدمت.
جي كريم.
واليقين هو الاعتقاد الجازم المطابق، وهذا هو المعتمد أن الخبر المتواتر يفيد العلم الضرورية، وهو الذي يضطر الإنسان إليه بحيث لا يمكن دفعه.
Okay, so that's fine. وهو المفيد العلم اليقيني. So this is what we need to. This is the hukum. Yeah, this is the hukum of khabr mutawatir, and that's all you need to know. Everything that Zain Sab has read, where he stopped up to, is just interpretation and explanation of mufid al-ilm al-yaqini. Khabr mutawatir. What is the hukum of khabr mutawatir? Khabr mutawatir هو المفيد للعلم اليقيني. خبر متواتر gives us certain knowledge, epistemological certainty. Yeah, that's the word. العلم اليقيني, epistemological certainty. It gives us certain knowledge. Yeah, هو المفيد للعلم اليقيني. So now, however, by certain knowledge, you can get certain knowledge in two ways. Number one, you can get certain knowledge through ilm, which you have received like that because it's a universal truth, which is called ilm al-dururi. Or you can get that certain knowledge, right, by doing a bit of calculations, which is called ilm al-nadhari. Ilm al-nadhari also gives dururi knowledge. Ilm al-nadhari also gives yaqini knowledge, because when we establish what is the number two, and then we establish what is adding, right, and then we establish that if you add another two to number two, you come up with 4. Once we understand all of these different parts of the equation, we come up with the conclusion. Once we receive the conclusion 4, that is ilm al-yaqini, because nobody then can say, no, 2 + 2 is 22. Yeah, because that's not how it works. 2 + 2 is 4. Once we receive and we understand the different parts of the equation, we have 4, and that 4 is yaqini knowledge. It's epistemologically certain knowledge. Okay. However, Imam Ibn Hajar is saying that وهو المفيد للعلم اليقيني. What he means by this, and he'll explain later, what he means by this is الضروري. Yeah, الضروري. So فأخرج النظري, from there, so he should have said وهو المفيد للعلم اليقيني الضروري in the definition, المفيد للعلم اليقيني الضروري. By saying that, فأخرج النظري, the نظري علم, the contingent knowledge, is being excluded على ما يأتي تقريره, as we will explain very soon. بشروط التي تقدمت, obviously with all the conditions of the mutawatir that has been mentioned. Okay, this is surplus. He didn't mention that بشروط التي تقدمت, because mutawatir is, when all the shuruts are found, then it gives يفيد العلم اليقيني الضروري. Now he's going to explain what is yaqeen. هو الاعتقاد الجازم المطابق. It's that firm conviction, اعتقاد الجازم, firm conviction, which corresponds to what you believe in. Yeah. وهذا هو المعتمد أن خبر التواتر يفيد العلم الضروري. And this is the dominant opinion, or this is the relied upon opinion, that خبر, notice the word tawatur, خبر التواتر rather than خبر المتواتر. This is the relied upon opinion that خبر متواتر gives us علم, which is ضروري knowledge. What is ضروري? وهو الذي يضطر الإنسان إليه بحيث لا يمكنه دفعه. It's the knowledge that the human being is forced to accept and which he cannot do without. Okay, لا يمكنه دفعه, which he cannot do without. He cannot repel that. Okay, this is the knowledge that immediately comes to us. Fire burns. That's علم الضروري. Half is smaller than half is smaller than a whole. Okay, now obviously half is smaller than a whole for the child, who's still learning what half is and what a whole is. That is nazari ilm, but we're not talking about the child here. We're talking about universal knowledge, right? What people. So daruri is the knowledge which is non-contingent, which we just know by dint of us being. So these are universal truths by dint of us being human beings. So by saying وهو المعتمد, it is mu'tamad, yeah, that وهو المعتمد أن خبر التواتر يفيد علم الضروري. Imam Ibn Hajar is alluding to an opposing view, and this is why above he didn't say al-mufid lil-ilm al-yaqini al-daruri, but here he says yufid al-ilm al-daruri. So if you want to have a succinct definition of the hukum of mutawatir, you say al-mutawatir. Say this after me now. Al-mutawatir huwa al-mufid lil-ilm al-yaqini al-daruri. Al-mutawatir huwa al-mufid للعلم اليقيني الضروري. Memorize this sentence. المفيد للعلم اليقيني الضروري. Right. Ji sab, Bilal sab, let's go public. Yes. Zain sab.
وقيل لا يفيد العلم إلا نظريا وليس بشيء، لأن العلم بالتواتر حاصل لمن ليس له أهلية النظر كالعام، إذ النظر ترتيب
نظر بفتح الضاء.
إذ النظر ترتيب أمور معلومة أو مظنونة يتوصل بها إلى علوم أو ظنون، وليس في العام أهلية ذلك، فلو كان نظريا لما حصل لهم.
Okay, so this is the opposing view that he is giving to the type of knowledge that the mutawatir we receive from the mutawatir. وقيل, what is قيل? Zain sab? صيغة التمريض. Yeah, means that it's a weak opinion. It's مريض. لا يفيد العلم إلا نظريا. Some people say that the only knowledge that we can, or the only type of conviction that we can get is ilm al-nadhari. Remember, ilm al-nadhari is not necessarily not ilm al-yaqini. Ilm al-nadhari can be ilm al-yaqini. Okay, like 2 + 2 = 4. So you have yaqini knowledge. You can receive yaqini knowledge from 2 ways, either daruri or either nadhari. Daruri is through obvious knowledge, and nadhari is you need to do a bit more kind of thinking of that. Okay, it's still yaqini knowledge. Okay, but ilm al-nadhari can also be dhanni as well. Okay, لا يفيد العلم إلا نظريا, that the only knowledge that we get is nadhari. Imam Ibn Hajar says walaysa bishay, right? That's not the case. No, laysa bishay is like, no. right? Yeah, whatever. That's what it means. وليس بشيء. I don't agree with that. لأن العلم بالتواتر حاصل لمن ليس له أهلية النظر كالعام. Because the knowledge of tawatur, yeah, because the knowledge of tawatur can also be attained by the person who does not have the capacity to do mathematical calculations, علم النظر, such as the army. For example, 2001. Zain Sab, you were in this dunya in 2001?
Yeah.
Okay. You must have been a baby, right?
I was 7 years old.
Achha, okay. So the World Trade Center, yeah, when it got hit. Now there are so many reports coming about the World Trade Center from different sources, from the internet, from the radio, from the mouths of people, right? That even though some of us might not have seen the World Trade Center in our lives, right? Even though we might not have physically seen the World Trade Center going down, still the general population and the armed person, the common folk, is convinced that the World Trade Center has gone down. Now, that's another issue as to who did it and how did it and what were the processes. There might be ikhtilaf on that, but the fact is that the World Trade Center went down, right? Even the army can understand that. That is such a universal truth, right? That it is absolute. لأن العلم بالتواتر, so this is the World Trade Center going down, right? Being blown up. That's mutawatir knowledge, and that knowledge was attainable for the army as well. Whereas the armed person, right, does not know, does not have the capacity. لمن ليس له أهلية النظر كالعام, it doesn't have the capacity to do nazar. So for example, everybody knows coronavirus, right, is a disease that kills. Yeah, that's tawatur. Even the armed person knows that. But how it kills, not everybody will have the expert knowledge, because to have that expert knowledge, you need to be from Ahlun Nazar. You need to be able to understand what a virus is. You need to be able to understand how it attacks the lungs and things like that. Yeah, this is why it's idhin nazar, because nazar is tartibu umurin ma'lumatin, to arrange known things, aw madnunatin, or things which are dominantly understood, يتوصل بها إلى علوم أو ظنون, which then leads us to new forms, or which then leads us to formulate new forms of knowledge, or at least new forms of dominant opinions. So what he's saying is ترتيب أمور معلومة أو مظنونة. We have got pieces of information, yeah, which are independent of each other, and what we do is we put them together. Tartib. Either that knowledge is firm knowledge, or that knowledge is not firm knowledge, it's dhanni, it's madnoon. But we've got all of these pieces of information, and we put them together, and we analyze them together. After analyzing them together, we come up with and we formulate new hypothesis, new knowledge. Either that knowledge is a theory which is proven, or it still remains in the hypothetical stage. This is what he's saying is nazar. ترتيب أمور معلومة أو مظنون, to arrange what we already know or what we already have a dominant opinion about, right? Analyze them in such a way that you are able to formulate convincing evidence, knowledge, or a hypothesis. Right? يتوصل بها إلى علوم أو ظنون. So you can see how epistemological this is. This is scientific. this is, if you were to pick up, you know, a book of the philosophy of scientific inquiry, Karl Popper's book, you know, a critique of scientific inquiry, he is talking about this stuff. If you were to, you know, open up Karl Popper's book, he is talking about this stuff. This is scientific inquiry we're talking about. فلو كان نظريا لما حصل له وليس في العام أهلية ذلك, and the Ammi person does not have the capacity to be able to do that, doesn't have the capacity to look at disparate pieces of information. As a result of this, the Ammi can then come up with a convincing theory or a hypothesis. Yeah. فلو كان نظريا لما حصل لهم. Therefore, if so, this is the jaza, right, of Imam Ibn Hajar's you know, critique. He says, if Mutawatir was to give Nadari knowledge, then no one would have got it. But our experience shows that even the average layman also can get knowledge of Mutawatir. Therefore, it means that Mutawatir is al-ilmu al-mufidu lil-ilm al-yaqini al-daruri. So here Imam Ibn Hajar, he might be responding to Mu'tazilis or some other faqih or someone else who says that yufidu ilm al-nadari. I can specifically find out who he is responding. I can specifically find out who he is responding to. I can say that, I can tell you this next week. I just need to look up. But he is responding to certain people. Okay, just a bit more, please. G.
ولاح بهذا التقرير الفرق بين العلم الضروري والعلم النظري.
Yeah, carry on.
إذ الضروري يفيد العلم بلا استدلال والنظري يفيده لكن مع الاستدلال على الإفادة.
Okay. Yeah. So he says from this above discussion, بهذا التقرير, from the above discussion, the difference between ilm al-dururi and ilm al-nadhari has become apparent, has been thrown into relief. Is it dururiyu yufidu al-ilma bila istidlal? Because daruri knowledge, which is kind of knowledge which just comes to us, so we can call them these universal truths or non-contingent knowledge, right? Yufidu, sometimes daruri knowledge is also known as badihi knowledge, badahatan. Yufidu al-ilm bila istidlal, that it gives us a firm knowledge without having to extract it, bila istidlal, without extracting it. Here means without dalil, but without extrapolating it, extracting it. وَالنَّظَرِ يُفِيدُهُ لكن مع الاستدلال على الإفادة. And nadhari knowledge does give ilm. By ilm here we mean ilm yaqini and not ilm dhanni, right? Does give yaqini knowledge. However, there needs to be some extraction, some understanding of dalail in order to get that knowledge. وأن الضرورية يحصل لكل سامع والنظرية لا يحصل إلا لمن فيه أهلية النظر. ضروري, anyone who listens, any person can get ضروري knowledge because it's a universal truth. Okay, for example, the laws of non-contradiction, anybody can get it. والنظري, so you have something in mantiq which is called mani'atul khulu'. Mani'atul khulu' is that you can't have two things together at the same, the two things cannot be mani'atul khulu'. Two things cannot be there at the same time. So you either have a case or you don't have a case. Okay, or two things cannot be the same thing at the same times. It can't be a case or it can't not a case. Right? I don't know if you understand that. This is called mani'atul khulu' in mantiq and mani'atul jama'. So these are the laws of non-contradiction. وأن الضروري يحصل لكل سامع والنظرية لا يحصل إلا لمن فيه أهلية النظر. Yeah, carry on, please. Just go a bit up, Bilal sab. Ji, Zain sab.
Is it وإنما أبهمت?
Yeah, so I've looked up the different books. You can read أبهمت شروط المتواتر, right? But it reads better if you say وإنما أبهمت, because Imam Ibn Hajar is talking about himself. Yeah, وإنما أبهمت شروط المتواتر في الأصل. Yeah, I have وإنما
لأنه على هذه الكيفية ليس من مباحث علم الإسناد.
See, she says وإنما أبهمت, right? I left out. أبهمت from the word بهم, right? سم بكم عمي or بكم or بهم is to be, to be dumb, not to be able to speak. وإنما أبهمت, I left out. Yeah, I left out. وإنما أبهمت شروط المتواتر في الأصل. I left out the conditions of mutawatir or the discussions of mutawatir in the Nukhba by Asl, in the original text. I left out the conditions of mutawatir or the discussion of mutawatir. By condition, shurut here means taqreer, right? Discussion. I left out the discussion of mutawatir in the original text. لأنه على هذه الكيفية, because in this manner. What do you mean by على هذه الكيفية? على هذه الكيفية is in this manner, the way that I am explaining it here. ليس من مباحث علم الإسناد. It is not from the discussions of علم الإسناد. See, I mentioned to you before that this is not. وإنما أبهمت شروط المتواتر في الأصل لأنه على هذه الكيفية ليس من مباحث علم الإسناد. This is not from the topic of this علم الإسناد, and yet he felt that he needed to tell us this because maybe, remember, he's writing this book as a response to, Shamuni and others, some of his teachers who went and interpreted his words. So maybe they have included those discussions and they have included those in a way that it doesn't tally with what Imam Ibn Hajar wanted to say. So he's given a clarification of the discussion, and then at the end he said, yeah, but all of that I mentioned, right, I didn't mention in the original Nukhba because it's not our topic. It's just by and by. Yeah, like I'm mentioning it to you, ilm al-yaqeen and nazar and shak and dhann, and then I'm basically saying let's not go too deep into it because that's more related to mantiq and usul al-fiqh. So Imam Ibn Hajar, after explaining a bit and answering some of these allegations, he said, let's not delve into it a bit more anymore because ليس من مباحث علم الإسناد. إذ علم الإسناد يبحث فيه عن صحة الحديث أو ضعفه ليعمل به أو يترك من حيث صفات الرجال وصيغ الأداء والمتواتر لا يبحث عن رجاله بل يجب العمل به من غير بحث. Because in ilm al-isnad, what is yubhath, what is examined or what is researched is whether the hadith is sahih or da'if, the authentication or of the hadith. Why? So that either one may act upon the hadith or leave it. From what perspective? From the min haythu sifat al-rijal, from the perspective of the characteristics of the people who are narrating the hadith, and also wa siyagh al-ada, and the way that the hadith has been transmitted. Wal mutawatir la yubhathu an rijalihi, and in mutawatir we don't look at the people, bal yajib al-amalu bihi, we don't look at the nature of the people, because there's so many people, right, that it's impossible for all of them to be conspiring to tell a lie. There's too many of them. right? So we don't need to go and individually think whether this person was a sharabi kababi or whether he's not, or whether he's a good person, whether he's, we don't need to look at that, because there's so many of them that it's impossible for all of them to be lying. So we don't look at the people. But يجب العمل به من غير بحث. It is necessary to do amal on the mutawatir hadith without seeking into its particulars. But that's only after it has been established. Okay, only after it has been established that it is a mutawatir hadith. Now, Imam Ibn Hajar has mentioned a very important point here, which is, in my opinion, is the pivot of the entire ulum al-hadith. And the moment you get your head around this, everything, the penny will drop. Okay, can somebody tell me, G-Sab? Zain Sab, you have a question?
No.
Can somebody tell me what is the definition of a Sahih hadith?
Is there 5 conditions?
Go on.
اتصال السند, ضبط الراوي, it's not rare, it's not shaz, it's not mu'allal, and I can't remember the one. Is it
Adalah.
Adalah?
So the condition, what you said, Zain Sab, is that's the correct one, right? Adalatul Rawi, the upright characteristics of the Rawi, okay? Wa Dabtul Rawi, and the scholarly capability of the Rawi, of the narrator. These two relate to the narrator. Yeah. Wa ittisalu sanad, and the continuity of the chain. This is a quality of the isnad. Okay. Then adam al-shuzuz wa adam al-illa, not to have rare hadith and not to have hidden defects. These can be qualities of the isnad or qualities of the text itself, of the matan of the hadith. Two things that we have here, right, which Imam Ibn Hajar alludes to. من حيث صفات الرجال وصيغ الأداء. Yeah, that we look into the lives of men or lives of people, or hadith scholars, and also we look at the method of transmission. The entire, if you were to make your the definition of the Sahih hadith as your basis for the entire ulum al-hadith, and you were to conceptualize it this way, and this is what happened to me when I read Nuruddin Ittar's book, you will understand that in order to declare a hadith to be sahih or da'if, so that one can act upon it or leave it, you need to first establish who those people are, right? So from there, we get the whole asma ur-rijal. We get the conditions of what adala is, right? We get the condition of what dabt is. Yeah, we get the condition. We get the whole discussions on how they passed on, right? How they received it. This is called tahammul al-adha. Did they receive it through sima'? Did they receive it through qira'ah? Did they receive it through ijaza? So all of that comes in. Then when we come to ittisal al-sanad, right, then we get the question related to the nature of the transmission. Was it broken? Was it non-broken? How many people were missing from the isnad, right? Where was that missing? Is it in the beginning of the isnad? Is it in the end of the isnad? Right? All of this comes in. Then, so this is it. This is all of ulum al-hadith. So everything that is coming afterwards is going to be talking about what is a weakness in the hadith. What is what happens when somebody is missing in the hadith? What happens when two people are missing in the hadith? What happens when there is missing, there's a break in the isnad right near the companion? Or what happens when there's a break in the isnad somewhere in the middle? That is all ulum al-hadith is about. It's going to be a lot of names and a lot of dates, right? Because in order to know who studied with who and how that person is, you need to know his biography or her biography, in order to know whether the isnad is continuous, you need to know dates. Okay? G-sub. Any questions? Carry on. Bilal-sub. Carry on, carry on. Go to page 48. G Zain sub.
فائدة. ذكر ابن الصلاح أن مثال المتواتر على التفسير المتقدم يعز وجوده إلا أن يدعى ذلك في حديث من كذب علي. وما ادعاه من العزة ممنوع، وكذا ما ادعاه غيره من العدم، لأن ذلك نشأ عن قلة اطلاع على كثرة الطرق وأحوال الرجال وصفاتهم المقتضية لإبعاد العادة أن يتواطؤوا على كذب أو يحصل منهم اتفاقا.
Yeah, so you can read it both kadhib or kidhb. Kadhib is more fasih than kidhb. Zain sir, I would just like to mention to you, you don't mind me asking you to read, right? There's no pressure. You don't have to. You don't have to read if you don't want to. You can say, Ustad, I don't want to read. You read. Yeah. So I don't want to pressurize anyone. It's just that when you read, then you will do mutala'a, and I'm sure you did mutala'a because you were asking me questions last night. You're under pressure. In Darul Ulum Bari, the way that you study, well, in my time, the way that people, so we had to read books to our ustaz. Okay, so we did qiraat ala shaykh. So we will read, and the way that I stop you, and then I do commentary. So that's how it used to happen in Darul Bari. So we used to read books according to our examination positions. So the first person will read Sahih al-Bukhari. The second person will read Sahih Muslim. The person who came second in the exam, he reads Sahih Muslim. The person who came third in the exam will read Abu Dawud. The one who came fourth in the exam will read Nasai. And the one who came fifth in the exam will read Sunan al-Tirmizi. And then the sixth one is Sunan Ibn Majah. Alhamdulillah, I read the Sahih al-Bukhari, and I also read the Muwatta of Imam Malik. The entire Sahih al-Bukhari, I read it to the teacher. Alhamdulillah, I used to sit first every single year. But it was an immense pressure on me because we used to be doing 30 sides of Sahih. Remember, the idea is that in the madrasa in Mishkat, the year before, you go through every single hadith and you analyze it, inside out. But the final year is known as Dawra Hadith, which is that you're kind of reading the books with minimal, commentary, because the idea is that so that you have an isnad muttasil to the teacher, you have an ijazah. But this ijazah is not just somebody who's giving you the ijazah. You have studied it, and it's not the studying that you have in the maqra. Nowadays you have all of these maqras, and Shaykh Yaqub reading Sahih al-Bukhari and the maqra in 3 days. No, this happens the entire year. So although there is a lot of ibarat and text that we are reading, but there is a lot of commentary. So towards the end of the year, there was a point that I was reading like 30 pages of Sahih al-Bukhari a day. And it's not 30 pages of your printed, it's those Hindustani print, which are massive books. I don't know if you've seen them. They're really big. And there's 30 pages of those. And that was like an immense pressure on me. And you have to read very fast, and you had to, you couldn't make a mistake in the isnad because the sheikh will cut you out. So this is what I'm saying. I hope that I'm not putting unnecessary pressure on you. وذكر ابن الصلاح أن مثال المتواتر على التفسير المتقدم يعز وجوده إلا أن يدعى ذلك في حديث من كذب علي متعمدا فليتبوأ مقعده من النار. Imam Ibn Salah, Imam Ibn Hajar says, Imam Ibn Salah says that the way that the mutawatir is mentioned in the previous description, al-mutawatir ala tafsir al-mutaqaddim, the way that it has been mentioned previously, just now, يَعِزُّ وُجُودَهُ, it is very difficult, يَعِزُّ, right, from the word aziz, it is very difficult to find a hadith which is mutawatir like this. إِلَّا أَن يُدَّعَ ذَلِكَ فِي حَدِيثٍ مَنْ كَذَبَ عَلَيَّ, unless one can make that claim for the hadith مَنْ كَذَبَ عَلَيَّ مُتَعَمِّدًا فَلْيَتَبَوَّأْ مَقْعَدَهُ مِنَ النَّارِ, as the sister asked. So everybody agrees on that. Imam Ibn Hajar Asqalani says, وَمَا ادَّعَاهُ مِنَ الْعِزَّةِ مَمْنُوعٌ. Right, he's responding to Ibn Salah. So Imam Ibn Salah says it's impossible to find a mutawatir hadith on those conditions that we have just mentioned, unless you only take the hadith man kadhaba alayya muta'ammidan falyatabawwa maq'adahu. Imam Ibn Hajar says وَمَا ادَّعَاهُ, what Ibn Salah has claimed min al-izza, that it is very difficult, not impossible, very difficult. Mamnu'un, it's not correct. Mamnu' here means correct, incorrect. It's not correct. وَكَذَا مَا ادَّعَاهُ غَيْرُهُ مِنَ الْعَدَمِ, and similarly, those who claim other than Imam Ibn Hajar, غيره, other than Imam Ibn Salah, min al-adam, that there is no such thing as mutawatir. What does he mean by kada? Yeah, وَكَذَا مَمْنُوعٌ مَا ادَّعَى غَيْرُهُ مِنَ الْعَدَمِ, or وَكَذَا مَا ادَّعَاهُ غَيْرُهُ مِنَ الْعَدَمِ مَمْنُوعٌ. So mamnu'un is hidden, right? And similarly, right, it is not correct that others other than Ibn Salah claim that you can't find any mutawatir. Some people say that there's no mutawatir. لأن ذلك نشأ عن قلة اطلاع على كثرة الطرق وأحوال الرجال وصفاتهم المقتضية لإبعاد العادة أن يتواطؤوا على كذب أو يحصل منهم اتفاق. And he says that لأن ذلك النشأ, he says that emanates from a lack of overview, a lack of overview on the myriads of transmission lines, isnads, and the biographies of narrators and their characteristics and attributes, which demands that normally these people cannot be conspiring to do on lying or lying by coincidence. Imam Ibn Hajar is basically saying that's because Ibn Salah and all of those other people haven't really got that wide knowledge like myself, right? And you know, Ibn Hajar can make that claim because he is who he is. He's not doing any takabbur, but he's saying, and he's saying this with full conviction. Right? He's saying this with full conviction because these people they haven't got that wide knowledge where they're able to look at this and look at so much turuq that it's impossible for all of the narrators to be gathering on a lie. Now I'll stop there. Imam Suyuti rahmatullahi alayhi picks up this discussion in Tadrib al-Rawi, and he talks about mutawatir, and he did kind of separates mutawatir into mutawatir lafzi, mutawatir ma'nawi. I'll explain to you what mutawatir ma'nawi is next week. But Imam Suyuti, with full, with full conviction, and not conviction with tafakhur, with pride. Right, not pride in the bad sense of the word, of takabbur, but that he's expressing his ni'mah. He says that I am the first one to have written a book solely on mutawatir hadith, and it's called Al-Azhar Al-Mutanathira. Al-Azhar from the word zahr, flower. Al-Azhar Al-Mutanathira fil ahadith al-mutawatira. Scattered flowers related to mutawatir hadith, right? This is a book that Imam Suyuti has written, where he's collected the mutawatir hadith. Al-azhar al-mutanathira fil ahadith al-mutawatira. And then he went and he made a khulasa, simplification of that book, or summary of the book, which he called Qatful Azhar. Qatful Azhar, cutting the flowers. In there he mentions some other hadiths which are mutawatir, right? Where he says hadith of Hawd al-Kawthar. The Prophet ﷺ is going to give us Hawd al-Kawthar. Or the hadith of al-Mas' ala al-Khuffayn. Okay, the hadith of Mas' ala al-Khuffayn. Or the hadith of Raf' yadayn. Or the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ says, نَضَّرَ اللَّهُ امْرَأً سَمِعَ مَقَالَتِي فَحَفِظَهَا وَوَعَاهَا وَأَدَّاهَا فَرُبَّ حَامِلِ فِقٍ إِلَى غَيْرِ فَقِيهٍ وَرُبَّ حَامِلِ فِقٍ إِلَى مَنْ هُوَ أَفْقَهُ مِنْ. That may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make the face of the person who listens to my words and then remembers it, acts upon it, and then passes it to others. But even then, Imam as-Suyuti rahmatullahi alayhi, he concedes that these are mutawatir ma'nawi. Let me take, there's only 4 minutes left. Let me take questions, inshallah. Okay, there are no questions. Somebody want to ask a question? But also remember that we've finished on page 48. Anybody wants to ask a question? No? Ask now or hold your silence forever. Chale, Bilal sir, we'll close the class then. Jazakumullah khair, inshallah. I will see you next week.
Next week probably Eid, so we're going to take a week off.
Okay, that's fine.
And the week after we continue.
Inshallah.
Okay.
Take care. Have a happy Eid, everyone, and inshallah, saykun khair. Pray for me in these last days, and I will pray for you as well. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.